Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Bears Pod with Parker Hurley. I'm your host, Parker Hurley. It's Tuesday, June 13th, 6 o'clock Eastern, 5 o'clock Central. Like we're doing all summer long, we're here on Tuesdays from 6 o'clock Eastern to 6:30. And we'll be here, like I said, all summer long until training camp starts. Then we'll get back to our Tuesday and Thursday routine. But things are slow right now. They just had an OTA practice. We really don't have too much to report from the first OTAs. Maybe on Tuesday, next Tuesday, the 20th, we'll end up doing an OTA recap. But for now, we're continuing to go through the Chicago Bears roster here as we get ready for training camp and the start of the 2022 season. So follow me at Parker Hurley. Check us out at beargoggleson.com. Everything we're doing there. And we did quarterbacks already. You can listen to mainly the expectations for Justin Fields with our quarterback recap. We did some running backs, talking about is Roschon Johnson coming up? Is Khalil Herbert the man there? Dante Foreman. We talked about some of the depth with the Chicago Bears running backs. And today we're going to talk about the wide receivers. And something we have talked about before was, DJ Moore and the addition of that. And I do have a podcast reacting immediately to that. And then I have a podcast, talking about a week or so into what the DJ Moore trade was. And so kind of just refreshing some of that as we get into, then we're going to get into the depth chart. And are there going to be, I think we pretty much can see that the depth chart is so, deep right now that there's going to probably be six guys that make this roster. Probably every team seems to have five or six. I think the Bears are going to lean towards six. So from DJ Moore all the way down to the sixth guy, what do we have here? And I do still want to get into the fact that I talked about it before, but I really do see DJ Moore potentially being able to have a similar breakout to, Josh Allen with Stephon Diggs, Jalen Hurts with A.J. Brown. I could see a similar thing with DJ Moore coming away. And a lot of people are, pump the brakes, hold your phones, Justin Fields isn't accurate. Justin Fields struggles with, other things. Similarly to what we said with Josh Allen, and a lot of people said, well, Stephon Diggs coming from Minnesota isn't going to, necessarily be able to be that guy, be able to take that step. And is Josh Allen able to be that guy to take him over that step? And when you saw that when those two forces came together, it turned into a perfect fit, and they both kind of took that step together. And then Jalen Hurts with A.J. Brown, you said this almost the same exact thing. Oh, Hurts isn't accurate enough. And the same thing that I keep hearing with Justin Fields is that, they ran the ball way too much. They aren't going to pass the ball enough for A.J. Brown to get his stats with the Philadelphia Eagles. They said the same thing with the Eagles, and now they're saying the same thing. Oh, well, Justin Fields, look how much they ran the football. Even if they throw the football X amount more, can it really be, can DJ Moore really be that guy? And like I said, you said the same thing with Diggs and we're proven wrong. You said the same thing with A.J. Brown and we're proven wrong. Not saying that it's always going to be, this is a steadfast rule that, when this receiver gets traded. But when you look at, especially in the case of DJ Moore, he was a former first-round pick. He has 3,000 yards receiving on his resume, and he's still only 25 years old. So he's about to hit, arguably, from 25 to 30 is typically a receiver's best days in their career. So these next 5 years could be his best, and he's already got 3,000 yards receiving. And when you say who were his quarterbacks in a lot of those seasons, you do look at it and realize, yeah, maybe DJ Moore could be that guy. And when you compare him to A.J. Brown and Stephon Diggs before they hit that explosive change of quarterbacks, there are a few differences. One is that A.J. Brown only played 3 seasons before he was traded. DJ Moore is entering his 6th NFL season, but A.J. Brown entered the NFL at age 22. DJ Moore entered the NFL at age 21. So DJ Moore will be 26, whereas A.J. Brown was 25 on the first year with his new team. Beyond that, you could compare the two, and then it would basically be from age 22 to 24 for Brown and age 21 to 25 for Moore. So it's a bigger sample size for Moore, but it is similar ages, and the ages certainly overlap. And honestly, if you compare just age 22 to 24 for DJ Moore, it's actually better because age 21 and 25 seasons just so happen to be his worst. So even when you add those in to compare them to AJ Brown, it actually ends up in AJ Brown's favor. And when you compare the two, I have an article about it saying that, why I think that it's so similar to what you saw with Justin or with AJ Brown is that AJ Brown, before he was traded from the Titans, 4.3 catches, 69.7 yards, and about a half a touchdown per game. DJ Moore, 4.6 catches, 65 yards, and zero point 0.3 touchdowns per game. So the difference is what, 4.7 yards per game. And then you actually look at it and you say DJ Moore averaged 4.2 rushing yards per game, and AJ Brown averaged 1.6 rushing yards per game. So he almost made it back just in terms of the rushing yards. It's just simply as that. So um, when you break it down like that, he had a very similar start to his career as AJ Brown, and people were saying, "Oh, AJ Brown is good, but can he take that next step? Is he that guy that, that could take that next step?" And we eventually saw that yes, he could, but now people are questioning that with DJ Moore in the same regard. Then you look at Stephon Diggs; he was averaging 5.2 catches in 66 yards, and the only real difference between Diggs and DJ Moore, they both ended up playing 5 seasons before they got traded. Diggs was 26 years old when he got traded versus DJ Moore was 25 years old when he got traded because Diggs entered the NFL a little bit later. And that's one of the reasons why he fell in the draft a little bit more. And yeah, we have Clayton here with a comment saying evening. Good evening, Clayton. And he says, hit that like and share button. Absolutely agree. Thank you, Clayton, for sure. And Clayton, if you have any comments and if anybody else has any comments that you guys want to talk about for this show, absolutely leave them here. We will hit them, and always hit like and subscribe and everything like that. And definitely leave your comments. If you're listening not live, like Clayton is listening live, if you're not listening to the live show, leave some comments in the comments section, and then we'll end up hitting on those on the very next episode next Tuesday, when we're probably going to be talking about tight ends. We may do some OTA reaction and things of that nature. But like I kind of just said with that comparison, all right, DJ Moore is averaging about 60 yards per game, 69 yards per game. Or AJ Brown's at 69, DJ Moore's at 65, Stephon Diggs is at 66. All of those were before they were traded to that new environment and things started to change for them. So you start to look at it, and like I said, they're all about the same age. They're all very similar positioning in terms of their career and everything like that. So I still don't see any reason to say that DJ Moore can't have that AJ Brown, Stephon Diggs type of ascension. And I saw that Mike Clay had him for, I think it was 925 receiving yards. And I think he's going to go over 1,000 receiving yards with Justin Fields. And another thing that I wrote about is that beyond the fact that AJ Brown statistically was not, overshadowing DJ Moore before the trade and before he upgraded in situation, DJ Moore could very easily do that. And the thought was that, well, it's just a perfect fit. AJ Brown was just a perfect fit for Jalen Hurts. It actually turns out that DJ Moore is a pretty solid and pretty perfect fit for Justin Fields. One of the things I wrote was Justin Fields was fourth in terms of the percentage of passes that went 20 yards in the air or further. DJ Moore happened to be fourth in the NFL of targets that were 20 yards in the air or further, and he was fifth in yardage of 20 yards or further. And that was just last season when he had 800 receiving yards. So he was still able to put up big yards, and the fact that most of his yards were coming in that 20-yard area, you think that, okay, well, his quarterbacks were PJ Walker and Baker Mayfield. Even if Justin Fields isn't this elite quarterback in the short to intermediate, and he put up 800 receiving yards with those guys, just based on the fact that I think when he catches these passes, I think they're going to be huge plays because Justin Fields is going to, he's got one of the strongest arms, and he's one of the best deep ball passers in the NFL with guys like Dante Pettis, on the receiving end. He's still one of the best in that area. And then you're going to add in that now it's DJ Moore, and DJ Moore was one of the best deep ball catchers when PJ Walker was throwing him the football. So you just think that, DJ Moore was already successful catching the deep ball with a bad quarterback. Fields was already successful throwing the deep ball with the bad receivers. When those two start to get together, it does have that, kinetic energy like AJ Brown to Jalen Hurts, to where they could take that huge step. And I would be buying big time in DJ Moore. And I think one of the small reports out of OTAs is that Moore, is taking over the room and is the leader of the room and all of those things. And that's something that you didn't hear about Chase Claypool. And one of the things that you are hearing about Chase Claypool this year is Justin Fields going out of his way to say, well, he's buying in this year. I see a different attitude change this year, and that, sounds good, but it also signals that Justin Fields admits, and there was, I think it was the Detroit Lions game, or maybe it was the week before that, because I think or no, yeah, he was injured, and then he came back for the Lions game. Claypool was injured for a couple weeks, came back for the Lions game. That game was a disaster for everybody. And Fields and Claypool were going at it on the sidelines, which speaks to, and then Fields comes back this summer and says, I think Claypool is showing a different attitude in the meeting rooms. I think, and that's one of the things that we're talking about is, okay, can you give Chase Claypool a pass because he came in the middle of the season? Or is it that Justin Fields is calling him out on the sidelines because he came in the middle of the season and isn't putting in the work to, learn the playbook fast enough, or he's realizing that this is a lost season and he's not putting in the time in that meaningless, quote unquote, meaningless week 17 game? I think Justin Fields was saying this game is not meaningless. I think Chase Claypool was arguably, his attitude was that maybe this is meaningless. And that's maybe why this, Pittsburgh Steelers moved on from Claypool. But Justin Fields is saying that, we're seeing the attitude change and things of that nature. You have to think that he, this is, I mean, everything is on the line for Chase Claypool this season in terms of his salary, his future. And I mean, he's going to have a future in the NFL, but mainly, is he going to be a receiver that teams, are interested in free agency, or is he just going to be a depth receiver, like Laquan Treadwell kind of signed recently with the Baltimore Ravens, and it just doesn't matter. Or Nelson Aguilar is on the Ravens, and it just doesn't matter because, or the Ravens signed Nelson Aguilar and then went out and made sure to continue to sign Odell Beckham and Zay Jones or Zay Flowers because they knew, is that what Claypool's going to go down that career arc of a guy like Nelson Aguilar where he's just hit or miss, come or go, things of that nature? Or could he start to become a more stable threat to where if he goes off this season, and these are the complications of, and this is why it was, arguably a bad trade from the beginning when the Chicago Bears made it, because a lot of people are saying, oh, well, you knew that first season was going to be a lost cause anyways. Okay, great. That's awesome. Then you should have just, waited for the offseason and you would have needed to trade the 32nd overall pick for Claypool. But you didn't do that because you didn't think that first season was going to be a lost cause whatsoever. You thought Claypool was going to have a better attitude and learn the playbook a little bit faster and things like that. And now you're in a spot where Claypool is on the last year of his rookie salary contract, and you're in a spot where you wanted to be in the spot where, okay, we learned what Claypool was in those last 7 or 8 games, and now we can either decide to pay him before this season or we're out on him. And now they're in this limbo of, oh, well, we don't know what he is. We still believe in him, this, that, and the other, but there's no way in heck we're paying him. We can't pay him before he goes into this last season. But here's the issue. If he goes into this last season and struggles, obviously it's a bad trade because you got a year and a half of bad performance out of him, and then you don't want to re-sign him and he's going to leave. But if he goes into this year and has like this dominant year and is like really good, Chase Claypool is looking at it and saying, you guys didn't believe in me. You guys paid for DJ Moore. DJ Moore is the number one target and I still went off. I'm going to get paid to be a number one target elsewhere, and I'm going to the highest bidder elsewhere. And the Chicago Bears are sitting there saying, we basically just got one season of football for the 32nd overall pick. And that's where it turns into, it's really not a win, even if they get a good season. And you say, okay, but if they get that one good season and that's the confidence builder that Justin Fields needs or something along those lines, maybe that's great. But it's still, you only get one season of good play out of Claypool, and then the odds just, skyrocket that he's going to be gone. And it's like the best case scenario for the Chicago Bears in terms of paying off the pick or whatever is that he almost is like a decent receiver this year, a number 2, like a medium number 2, low end number 3, or a high end number 3 type of receiver. Has a big play here and there, a 100-yard game here and there, but also is quiet for, 4 or 5 games. And then you can sign him on a reasonable deal. And then you hope maybe that, when he's extended on that reasonable deal, you can see the value of the 32nd pick get paid off. So like you're walking such a thin line with what you need to see happen from Chase Claypool this season, and that's where it is a bad trade, and that's where it is so tough to see, where exactly, what do they think of Claypool? Because like I said, he's not going to be that number one target. All the talk is about DJ Moore, and then you heard, the first week of OTAs, you heard about his attitude change, and now you're hearing today that he's missing practice with a soft tissue injury. So, I mean, is it ever going to come together for Chase Claypool with the Chicago Bears? The odds are obviously starting to get more and more unlikely. And when you look at it with Darnell Mooney, I know Mike Clay, I think, has Mooney for like 690 yards and Claypool for like 590. I think that's pretty fair. And when you think about it with Mooney, Mooney's going to be in the slot for the most part. He was like a 20% slot player with Matt Nagy, and he was about 75% slot last season. And that's when you factor in that most of the time the outside receivers were Equanimeous St. Brown and Dante Pettis. So when those outside receivers become options like Chase Claypool and DJ Moore, I think they're going to push Darnell Mooney into the slot even more. And you could argue that, DJ Moore takes, 20% in the slot. Chase Claypool the Steelers were trying to turn him into a slot player. But I think the Steelers just misidentified what he was. And maybe, if you did that from the get-go, maybe it works out. But giving him 2 years on the outside, then trying to push him into the slot for one season and expecting him to have the nuances of a slot receiver and then just giving up on that, 7 or 8 games into the season. Like I said, maybe if they gave that a couple years of time, he becomes that big slot player. And then the Chicago Bears trade for him and stick him immediately back on the outside. So it's clear that they're sticking him continually to stick him on the outside. So it's going to be interesting to see how it works out because Darnell Mooney has that chance to outproduce Chase Claypool because he's going to be in the slot and he's going to get that off coverage much more likely. He's not going to draw the safety attention as much as, somebody like DJ Moore or even Claypool because of his size and stature on the outside running deep down the field is going to draw the safeties towards the sidelines. And he's going to have those, Darnell Mooney deep down the middle of the football field is typically when he was at his best. People will point to the fact that he was less efficient last season when he moved into the slot. And, on that small sample size of snaps that he did play on the outside, he was producing more on a yards per route run on the outside. But still, I mean, I keep talking about how many times do you have to toss away last season's stats because the offensive line, because Justin Fields was playing hero ball, because, Mooney didn't have guys like DJ Moore and Chase Claypool taking the attention away. So when he gets that free access over the deep middle of the football field, I could see Darnell Mooney having a better season. And this is another one that I think, if anything, maybe you see the Chicago Bears sign Darnell Mooney before the start of the season, but I don't believe that's going to happen. And I think a lot of people understand that, especially when they drafted Tyler Scott out of Cincinnati on day 3. And the biggest news that it was from rookie mini camps and it's extended into OTAs now is Tyler Scott moving into the slot was about a full-time outside player at Cincinnati. Now he's moving into the slot, and he's really, from a size and weight and all of those things, outcome, you would say that he's basically, a clone or very similar to Darnell Mooney. I think he's a little bit smaller, and I know his hands are a little bit smaller, and that's one of the things I'm a little bit worried about with Tyler Scott is, one, I don't think his route tree is too far extended, and 2, I think he has questionable to not the greatest hands, especially in contested situations, in my opinion. And then obviously 3 is he, has never played the slot. But the thought is here that they're going to have Tyler Scott be that 4th receiver, spend a year, just doing this, that, and the other little things, potentially filling in for if Chase Claypool has soft tissue, if Darnell Mooney has an issue, or if Moore has something, then, Claypool would probably slide into the DJ Moore role. Or something along those lines, and it would be, Tyler Scott stepping into the slot or something along, or a secondary receiving option line, and then he would take that one season as that 4th receiver fill in and things like that to Darnell Mooney walks, and then Tyler Scott steps into that role. And then, in my opinion, because a lot of people are saying, okay, Mooney and Chase Claypool are going to be free agents at the end of this season, or those guys that you extend this offseason, do you extend one? Do you extend the other? Could one of or the other do enough to where you give them the money? In my opinion, I actually think, like I said, maybe they do extend Mooney before this season because The idea that he's a locker room guy, he's a guy that has been here from the start. He's a guy that you just pay guys who show up and do their job and things like that, and it sets the tone for other guys in the locker room. And they don't just say that oh, they'll just throw anybody away. Look at Mooney. He shows up every day and does the right thing, and they just don't even care. Versus, if Mooney is one of those guys that sets that example, then you pay those guys. Chase Claypool hasn't shown that whatsoever, so you don't pay that type of guy. Maybe you do pay Mooney, but like I said, once you draft Tyler Scott, it makes it so much more unlikely that you're going to pay Mooney. And that's where my answer is, oh, which one are they going to extend? Neither. Tyler Scott steps into Darnell Mooney. They have both the Carolina Panthers pick in the first round, and they have their own first round pick. And I think with both of them, you would highlight an edge rusher and a wide receiver are probably your two biggest needs when you look at their roster. Or, hopefully Braxton Jones doesn't make you need a left tackle, or something along those lines. But either way, then you're looking at DJ Moore. Another article I wrote about DJ Moore is actually because the Chicago Bears still have like $30 million in cap space or something. They probably still have to sign somebody like Justin Houston, I would argue, to assume. Because the Bears have so much money, they're able to give DJ Moore about $20 million of cap space this year. And then for the next 2 years, he's actually on like $32 million over the next 2 years. It's like $16 million per year. And what I wrote is that by the time that you start calculating in the other salaries that are going to be around him, the rookie contracts that are going to get paid over the next 2 years, and the way that the market continues to push salaries up, he's going to be like the 20th paid wide receiver in the NFL over the next 2 seasons. So you're getting a guy who maybe is up around A.J. Brown and Stephon Diggs talent level, and you're going to be paying him 20th receiver over the next 2 years. Now that's great, but then when you add in that, first off, do you want to pay Mooney or Claypool more than DJ Moore? Because both of them on the open market are going to look for it or expect it, and you don't want to do that. You don't want to pay either of them, what you're paying more than what you're paying DJ Moore, because DJ Moore is obviously the number one receiver, and then you're going to have to restructure DJ Moore. And maybe DJ Moore has such a big year this year that Ryan Poles, out of goodwill and out of cap space, says, let's just pay him the bag right now. We don't care that we have him over a bargain over the next 2 seasons. But at the same time, I could easily see them saying, yeah, we have a bargain deal over the next 2 seasons. Let's really milk this. And like I said, Tyler Scott's on a day 3 rookie salary. And if you add another rookie salary, even if it's a first round pick, you're not spending a lot at wide receiver, and you're really able, and you have, Scott's, entering his second year and fills into the Mooney role. DJ Moore's in his second year with Justin Fields, and then a rookie, is stepping into the Chase Claypool role, and you're able to, keep things churning at a much, much cheaper cost than extending Mooney, Claypool, or both. And then you're spending those resources on, okay, if you didn't get the edge rusher because you're picking high or you're picking lower than you wanted to, you won more games, good job, but you can't get an edge rusher. Now you got to pay somebody. All right, let's pay somebody. We'll save. We're not paying Claypool or Mooney 30 something million combined. Those two, they're going to look for that if they have a good enough season, if they're going to potentially get it on the open market. So like I talked about, kind of keep moving down the depth chart here with Velus Jones. That, like, I don't know if Velus Jones is going to make the roster. A lot of people obviously do, because he started to come along as a kick returner towards the end of last season, but I mean, and he did also start to step in terms of special teams as a gunner and things like that. But he's going to be, first off, I already listed 4 receivers, right? DJ Moore is obviously the number one. Chase Claypool, they got to see what they have in him. They traded a lot for him. Darnell Mooney has proven the most with Justin Fields. There's your guys. Tyler Scott, we all kind of assume he's ahead of Chase Clay or Velus Jones, although the Chicago Bears did draft him in the 5th round. They drafted Velus Jones in the 3rd round. Now Velus Jones is in his 2nd year. Tyler Scott's a rookie, and we're almost all already putting him ahead of Tyler Scott. It almost speaks to how bad the Velus Jones pick was. And that was like, I saw him as like a 7th round pick as a prospect. Like, I was stunned when the Chicago Bears took Velus Jones, and he averaged 8 yards per game as a rookie. So at some point there's a sunk cost, where you say, oh, let's, it's a 3rd round pick. You got to keep betting on him. You got to keep it, let's see, you weren't wrong. You got to keep betting. And there's another thought where it says, he showed up. You knew you were wrong immediately. You tried and you tried all the rookie season. It failed miserably, and you just got to say we were wrong. And here's the thing: um, neither would have gotten. We've got a comment here that says neither would have gotten more than 10 this offseason from Noah T. Are we talking about Darnell Mooney and Chase Claypool? Because with Chase Claypool, I mean, I definitely agree that he wouldn't have gotten more than 10 this offseason. Darnell Mooney, actually, I think when you look at, especially with how much wide receivers are getting paid, and it is also true though that Darnell Mooney, because he's coming off of the foot injury, you could say that that's an issue in terms of what his salary would be. But if you look at the stats that Darnell Mooney has produced through his first 3 seasons, and you compare it to, I could pull up a couple receivers, but even somebody like Christian Kirk is kind of the banner name that everybody throws out. But I think if you compared, I think Christian Kirk is a little bit better statistically than Darnell Mooney through their first 3 seasons. I think they're pretty similar though. But you're talking about Christian Kirk making like 16 million. So I think Darnell Mooney like 4 for 48 million, so like $12 million per year. I really do. I think if Darnell Mooney went to the if he didn't do anything this season, I think he could still get 4 for 48 on the free market. I think if he has a good season this season, and I guess I'm kind of betting on that just due to the fact that I think with Moore and with Claypool, I think it's a good fit. I think that they could all just like fit off of each other, and Mooney could have a good season. I could see him getting up to 50. And like I said, the salary cap goes up. I could see him getting $15 to $16 million on an open market. Claypool, his salary, like I said, based on this season, it could go from like $3 million to like he could be in that Darnell Mooney $16 million range if he has a really good season. But I do agree, based off of last season, he wouldn't get $10 million on an open market. So but he has the talent. And I mean, his first 2 seasons with the Pittsburgh Steelers, he had 800 yards in both seasons. So, like I keep saying, Jacoby Myers or somebody like that, when you're talking about the stats, how much better statistically in those 2 seasons was he than Jacoby Myers? And Jacoby Myers certainly got more than $10 million. Chase Claypool physically is better than Jacoby Myers. I don't know if he's a better receiver. I think we're going to find out this year. But the way the receivers get paid, I think you could argue that he would potentially make more than $10 million. We got from Mile High Boost. He says, will he wait till this offseason to potentially extend K-Met? I think Tanyan will have a better season. It's really fascinating. And definitely tune in Tuesday. We're going to talk more about this with Cole Kmet. And I do think if there's a player that the Chicago Bears extend before Chase Claypool and before Darnell Mooney, I think it would be K-Met. I think one of the big reasons is that one thing you see is that these tight ends in their second and third season are often so much better. Their second and third contract are so much better than that first rookie contract. And maybe K-Met hasn't lived up to what people thought, based off of his first 3 seasons. But I think the Chicago Bears, and the other thing is he went to the NFL when he was 20 years old, and he was a baseball player from Notre Dame, so he was raw in that regard. So I think the Chicago Bears may look and say his 5th through 8th seasons are actually going to be his best of his career, and we're not worried about his 4th season right now. So I think maybe Tanyan, I don't know if he'll have a better season. I think he'll cut into Cole Kmet, significantly to where it may hurt Kmet's value on the market. And I think the Chicago Bears may come in with a team-friendly offer and say, hey, Cole, you're going to get your receiving cut into. If you want to stay in Chicago, be a team guy, this, that, and the other, we're going to extend you. We'll throw you some guaranteed money. It's not going to be a significant deal, but look what Dalton Schultz just got on the open market. But like I said, that we are going to talk about that on the next episode. So that's a little preview into the next episode, and definitely leave some comments if you want anything else to talk about. And I'm talking about that. One of the other reasons I don't know if Velus Jones is going to make the roster really quickly is that Equanimeous St. Brown is still here, and Equanimeous St. Brown really didn't play special teams last year because Equanimeous St. Brown was like their number one receiver. He was starting. They were so bad at receiver. Equanimeous St. Brown could be a core special teamer, so he could cut into Velus Jones, who really started to almost the reason Velus Jones got his roster spot back after he lost his roster spot was because not only was he returning kicks, he was also a gunner on special teams and things of that nature. And then there's Dante Pettis, who was starting over Velus Jones last season. Dante Pettis was returning punts last year. So the Chicago Bears, okay, for that fifth and sixth receiver, is Velus Jones the punt returner? Is Dante Pettis is Dante Pettis the kick returner? Is Equanimous St. Brown your punt gunner? And then they have two guys who are kind of sleepers here in Nasimba Webster and Joe Reed. And those two almost, Pettis isn't a great kick returner. Velus Jones fumbled multiple times in punt returns. Those two could kick and punt return. And the Chicago Bears may just say, if Equanimous St. Brown is our fifth guy and he can get on the field as a receiver and he's a gunner, our sixth receiver is never going to get on the field offensively. And if Joe Reed turns into a better return man than Velus Jones, then it is what it is. So, and like I said, if he can return punts and kicks, so whoever can return punts and kicks, and if Velus Jones is returning punts, now not only is that job in danger, his roster spot is in danger, because Nasimba Webster can return punts and kicks, because Joe Reed could return punts and kicks, because maybe Dante Pettis, if needed, would return punts and kicks. But if Velus Jones can take the punt returning job away from Dante Pettis, then he gets that sixth receiver spot. So any other questions? We'll probably continue to talk about some wide receivers and things like that on next episode. We're going to get into Mile High Boost comment about will Tonyan have a better season than Cole Kmet? That's a burning question that I will hit on Tuesday. It's our full tight end preview. So I'm going to dig even deeper into Cole Kmet. I'm going to dig even deeper into Tonyan. And who the heck is the depth? Who do the Chicago Bears have as depth? Tune in Tuesday. Follow me at Parker Hurley. Follow us at beargoggleson.com. Check out all the articles I mentioned. We have all that DJ Moore content, all of that I talked about. I have questions about, is Velus Jones going to make the roster? All on beargoggleson.com. Check that out. And we'll talk to you guys next Tuesday for another half hour of Chicago Bears.